So I wanted to do another video around these incomplete self-protection responses, just to give people an idea of what they might look or feel like in day-to-day life. So these incomplete protection responses, I'll remind you, they are responses that got caught up in our system at some stage when we were experiencing trauma or stress. Um, the conditions at the time were not ideal, and that energy got trapped or stuck in our system in some way. So when we experience any of the things that I talk about today, if they are single instances, if they have a very specific trigger in the moment or a stressor in the moment that has created that, it's not necessarily an issue. But when it becomes a pattern in our system, when it occurs when there's no particular trigger, or we can't figure out what the trigger is, or if they just keep coming back again and again and again in a kind of pattern that we're beginning to notice, it might be time to do a little bit of work around that and explore what might be motivating that energy to be here. So, fight, flight, freeze, and fawn, the four typical responses that occur. And fight being anything from irritability, frustration, to anger, to rage. So our system is designed to fight, to create boundaries for us, to be able to fight our corner. So any particular single incidence of any of these things is completely normal. We all get irritated, we all get frustrated. When we find that there's certain um, patterns of that and they're continuous, or we feel the energy of that all of the time or really regularly, that may be time to explore a little more. So the energy is usually some kind of tension. So we may clench our shoulders, our fists. We might notice a real tightness the whole way down our torso. We might notice a lot of tightness around our feet, around our legs, particularly as well around our jaw. Some people would experience broken teeth, and dentists would comment on their broken teeth because of clenching and grinding teeth and jaw. And quite often, if you think about the anger that we experience, there's that tension that's all particularly up in, around our shoulders and jaw and our hands. Our flight response, if there's a flight response in our system, we might notice simply a lot of energy a lot of the time. It might be quite irritable energy, might come with irritability and frustration. And we might find ourselves busy, busy, busy all the time. Very hard to settle, very hard to take a break, to rest. We might be just generally busy all of the time. That can indicate sometimes that there's a little bit of flight in the system, that we're always on the go, we can't stop. If we pause, it may be too threatening to pause or to rest or to slow down. So that might be something that the flight response pattern might show up. It may also be a lot of energy going through our limbs. So a lot of moving energy, sometimes a lot of tingling, sometimes just generally a lot of fidgeting and a lot of moving of the legs or the feet or the hands. Sometimes they can indicate some flight energy that's left in our system. You can also experience quite a lot of anxiety around that. There may be an increase, a very obvious increase in heart rate, palpitations in the chest. Some people experience a little bit of nausea or some gut problems when any of these responses are stuck in the system. Freeze is a little different. Freeze can tend to be a lot of apathy, a lot of low energy. So you're talking about depression, you're talking about isolation quite often, and not having the energy to do anything, even to function in day-to-day life sometimes. Quite often, people will experience this kind of energy in the short term if there has been a shock to the system. But if this continues, or if cycles or patterns of this continue over the long term, then it might suggest that there is some kind of freezer shock in the system that needs some exploration. Fawn is something that is described a little less often, I suppose, in general media. But this is around what we do and the behaviors and the way that we respond in order to protect ourselves, to placate or to change a pattern in our lives or in our environment. Quite often it is to pacify other people because there is a sense or there is a fear or threat in our nervous system that the consequences of fighting or fleeing or shutting down may be worse in some way. Um, you will see a lot of people talk about maybe people pleasing or taking on roles that don't necessarily belong to them and families, things like that. That might be what you see. Again, look, we're all kind people. We all want to help other people. It may not be a fawning response that's happening when we see people do for others a lot. But if it feels like it's quite stagnant, if it feels like there's a trappedness to that kind of behavior, it may be something that needs a little bit of exploration. As I said, this is not an exhaustive list of things that happen, but it's just a little bit of an idea of some of the patterns that I come across in clients when they come in. Some of these things are very obvious to people, and some of them are very subtle. And you may be sitting thinking, oh God, that's me. Or you might be sitting, God, I know somebody who feels like that or does that. And it's not necessarily that there is trauma or stress stuck in the system. It may just be that they go through periods of this because of triggers in their environment at the time. So it's not to worry about any of these things, but it is something just to think about whether or not you might want to explore them in a little bit more detail if that's what you experience. I look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye.